Alright, today I am making mated pairs of the wiffle tree and sliders. So, back in December, I ordered a bunch of parts from PCBWay to make like Chris's hand and Brandon's hand and um, this guy named Oleg. I'm building him a hand too, but obviously he isn't in the US, so I'm figuring that out, shipping wise and money wise. Um, but the problem with ordering, a bunch of parts is now you have to process a bunch of parts. So I am making mated pairs of the wiffle tree clevis and the slider. That's the part that actually drives the fingers to open and close. And it's long and tedious. I was able to use the Tapmatic. It's an automatic forward reversing tapping head on the milling machine. But for, through tapping and matching the threads on a little over a half an inch and 440, it does not like it. The clutch is not strong enough, and if you up the clutch too much, then it, you'll break a tap, which sucks. Taking my glasses off so I can actually read these things. Hey, thanks. I appreciate that. So, you may have noticed I have been absent from YouTube for a while. This is my soft getting back into YouTube. YouTube, I just don't make enough money to, do on the regular. And it kind of sucks. I do like doing it, but so, trying to figure that out. Trying to make enough money to make the project go on. So what I did is, after I ordered the parts from PCBWay, so a million years ago, I used to be interior stadium manager for the Super Bowl. I did all of the foreign media build out. Well, actually, I didn't do anything. I walked around with a binder and a backpack and a tape measure, and I directed like 60 people to build the buildings for the foreign media build out of Super Bowl. So, while I was waiting for parts, I went and did that again this year. And it was pretty good, but, then I came back to a pile of work. Unfortunately, when I came back, I got pneumonia, bronchitis, pneumonia again, and that cost me a month of, oxygen and, not coming to the shop because you can't breathe. So that kind of sucked. But I am back, and I have a pile of parts. Got through most of my obligation of work that I needed to do before I could get back onto this type of work. My goal for right now is to just get this little pile put together. So these become mated parts. This wiffle tree will only be with this slider and this clevis. So like, this clevis will only be with this slider, will only be with this slider, but this makes up one hand, so it's a left and a right. Yeah, I am too. I have 1 week until chemo, so that kind of sucks, but, that's the cost of doing business. So, and then I have to have the real conversation with my oncologist going, hey, at what number do I have to start real treatment again? because unfortunately my M spike is back. So I'm gonna have to do stem cell again or something. So that sucks. But hey, this time I have a YouTube channel, so maybe I'll do YouTube from the hospital. Right? Absolutely. Oh, I have this company that they do an EMG. It's like a watch band, and they've been wanting me to do a thing with them. Kind of go back probably about 2 years, where I was doing the myomechanical about what about the 157, 158 hand, and I haven't decided. I mean, I really do like that it's all mechanical. It doesn't run out of batteries. It doesn't care if it gets wet. It does slightly care if it gets dirty. And after I get done tapping all of these, I have to start taking apart my hand and cleaning it, because it's kind of gotten to the point where it's, it's super draggy. It's, it just needs to be maintained. That's just part of it. Hey. My son's name's Zachary. What up? So, that would have been so convenient if I would have been able to do these parts on the milling machine, just with the Tapmatic, with the tapping head. And these are all SLA printed out of mag aluminum from PCBWay. So my mom had that done about, probably 4 years ago, ball and socket, and she's been pretty happy with it. It took about a year for everything to settle down in her hip. It kept feeling like the pin, the head of it with the ball, it kept feeling like that kept moving around in her bone. But I haven't heard her. Ooh. Oh, whew. Thought I was going to break that one. So she's been pretty happy with it. So I am making mated sets of the Whiffletree, the Clevis, and the slider. I ordered, I spent a bunch of money before Christmas, about $5,000 on parts, trying to beat the China tariff, and still got hit with about $1,600 worth of tariff. But better than, yes, it has been a long time. I ended up having to make some real money and do real work. So, as I was saying earlier, I went and did stadium project managing for the Super Bowl, and then came back, and I got a client that I do, a lot of miscellaneous fabrication for. He's a miner up in Nome, Alaska. So I made him some fuel tanks and trauma parts. So I would have, if I was going to do that, I would have to have somebody in my region that needed it. Just because, like with this device, I went with what I know. On this type of thing, I can put it on. I know what it feels like. I know how it functions. Where I'm not missing a thumb, it'd be the same thing as me making a leg. I'm not missing a leg, so I don't know. I wouldn't be the best for knowing exactly what the requirements are. Right now, I'm making mated sets of the wiffle tree slider and clevises for driving the fingers. I threaded most of the parts yesterday on the milling machine with the Tapmatic, and now I am threading the sliders in together, and then I will cut them apart, because I figured out kind of I wouldn't say it's a hack for PCBWay when you're ordering parts, but they have a minimum volume for the part. So like on the sliders, if I already have one of these sliders printed, it's the same price as having both of these sliders printed with a sprue. So what I did is on all my small pieces, I just connected 2, 3, 4, 5 of the parts together and submitted the drawings to PCBWay, and the prices came back, within pennies of what my original quote was. Awesome. So I end up getting parts for half price, or 1/5 the price. Like when I was doing not those, these the chain crosslinks, these I ended up putting, I think 5 of them all together just with a little sprue. And oh yeah, well, especially, I was not planning on getting hit with the tariff. And because all of my normal stuff, I've never been hit with the tariff. And my plan was I placed this order in December just to get ahead of the Trump tariffs and stuff. And then I guess they actually started implementing, they changed some of the tariff laws back in September of last year, which, whatever. But, kind of sucks to get that email going, hey, we need another $1,600 from you to let it into the country. And you're like, wait a minute, I wasn't planning on paying you an extra $1,600. So, because you can't really tax your way to prosperity. Yeah, and it's and they don't care. It's you either pay the $1,600 or they ship it back to China. And things already had a little over $5,000 in all the parts, so you're gonna pay the money. They're holding you hostage, basically. So, anyways, so back to starting making content. I got a couple Creality things I got to do. Creality sent me a new scanner. They sent me one of their Raptor scanners. Super awesome. Came with they sent me with the Wi-Fi base and all that junk. This thing, before I was using the Ferret Pro, and this is the Raptor It's not the Raptor X, but it's just the Raptor. And it is so cool for doing, say like when I'm doing a refined socket, so you scan your hand in Mesh Mixer, you do it like a 3mm offset, and then you print it, and then you modify that, and then you can scan this rather than doing anything digital, on the computer, and it works so good. It is so accurate, which is awesome. It's what it should be. Yep. So I was doing splay stuff yesterday for the new setup. And it's pretty cool. So when Chris came here, Chris, whose hand looks like this, we decided that we're not going to do grip pattern select on his hand, because we're doing 3 fingers for him. In fact, this is his winder base. So this is a normal winder base, and then this is Chris's, and you can see it's, the ears that everything's mounted to are narrower, and Chris's device is only going to have 3 fingers. So we're taking the index, middle, and ring and sliding them down 1 slot, getting rid of the pinky finger itself. Just because when he was an electrician, he got electrocuted. I don't know. I imagine he's okay with sharing that. So he's a storm electrician and got electrocuted. Blues, someone had a generator hooked up on the house without a disconnect onto the line, and it backfed into him when he was doing a re-energization on the line. So it ended up blowing him apart a little bit. We're looking for a cat that's caught in something right now, out in the back of the shop. Huh? Oh, go find the cat. Oh, there's one. And there's the other one. Hi, kitty, kitty. Huh. Okay, so my neighbor Julie, we've had a lot of cats lately just dropped off at the shop and the property. Just people being... Huh? Well, I'm talking to you now. I'm doing a YouTube live. I was in there tapping parts. No worries. Looks like just 2 cats were fighting. There's 2 black ones, well, a black one and kind of a gray one, that were over an advanced property.
Well, it sounded, I just thought maybe it was a trap.
No, it kind of did sound like something was trapped.
Okay.
So, oh, you're welcome.
Sorry,
Not a problem. I'm still live. Yeah. Yeah, so we've been taking care of the neighborhood cats, that have been, I don't know. I mean, I know the economy's tough and all, but to just drop your cat off in an industrial area is kind of crappy. I do. Last year, oh my gosh, we had, it was 8 kittens, and I mean like kittens. God, they were probably, they were 6. Their eyes were barely open, and oh my gosh, someone literally put them in a cardboard box and dropped them at the end of my driveway, at the shop. And I mean, and they were awesome they were kittens, but today we're going to have sweet and sour chicken for lunch. But someone actually dropped just barely old cats. Barely old kittens in the driveway at a shop. And, I mean, it took us like no time, it took us like no time to find them homes and stuff. But, I mean, they were, Siamese, and I think there was an orange one, and, so always got to have a little bit of retarded one. Let's see how this is. 4 minutes on high. So I'll show you some of the parts that I ended up getting from PCBWay, and it's a lot of them, but I don't know, it's awesome. It's awesome to see the project kind of come together like this. So let's see. Here we go. So I got a bag of medials. Ooh, that light is super in you guys' eyes. There we go. So, got a bag of medials, right there. Got the bag of metacarpal bases. So these actually need quite a bit of refinement to them. They came in pretty close dimensionally. I gotta move you guys because I can't read that far away. So they came in pretty close dimensionally. Oh my gosh, okay, so is this the Oleg that I'm building the hand from? So are you the Oleg that I'm building? I mean, I'm sure you aren't, but if you are, that would be awesome. So, metacarpal bases. Index and ring finger proximal ones. Distals. So this is the very tip of the finger. Proximal 2s for the index and ring. Proximal 1s for the middle finger. Proximal 2s for the middle finger. Proximal 1s for the pinky. Bet you guys can. Proximal 2s for the pinky. And then I'll grab a parts for nested pieces I was talking about. Okay. So these are the distal links. This is what connects the proximal one to the distal. So you can see how I linked 5 of them together. So the price to have one of these printed versus having all of these printed, printed like this, is like within 10 cents. So I ordered a bag of those. I hope they work. They may not be strong enough because they're printed. Printed parts are still, these are better than plastic. Hands down, better than plastic. But they still aren't as strong as if you do them over on the milling machine. So, yeah. So, all of this, let's see, all of that, $5,000. Which, that's awesome. Especially like on the, especially on the metacarpal bases, I can't make those on the 5th axis for, how long does it say for the second round? 2 minutes, 3 minutes. We'll go 3 minutes. All right. Also, this Christmas, I bought a fiber laser, which is awesome. No, so these are powder SLS, selective laser sintering. So I bought a 200-watt fiber laser and rotary axis and Z stage. Lately I've been doing, business cards, little gadgety stuff, and then hydro flasks. So that's been pretty cool. I've just been figuring out what the feeds and speeds are. And then here are some 400-gallon tanks for diesel fuel going up to Nome, Alaska pretty soon. And then I'm also doing a remodel of the room adjacent to my studio for where I'm going to set up all my printers and the lasers and the resin printers to where they're not in the studio proper. Also, news about my FL Sun. Okay, I told you that I would let you know if and when I start having issues with it. So, about in December, everything kind of happened in December. The hot end kind of blew up on itself and so it blew up from the inside. You can see that there must have been a void or a hole somewhere in the hot end, because the inside of the heater block is just filled with plastic. So here is I ended up taking the heater cartridge all apart and all that. I can't find where the actual hole is on this, but at this time I might avoid buying an FL Sun just because it took me. They don't have the spare parts support. It took me. So I ordered. The hot ends are always out of stock, and so are the cooling fans. The 7mm by 25 by 25 cooling fans are always out of stock. Well, if you can't get replacement parts for your printer, then it then it's only as good until its first failure. So, that being said, I might, I don't know. Oh, yeah, no, that's awesome. So, anyways, I'm experimenting a lot with these. So, these are mag silicon aluminum, and I get these from PCBWay. I don't know if the cross links are going to be actually strong enough. I hope they are, but if they aren't, I can always make them on the fourth axis on the milling machine. But for the price, it was a super awesome price. Because I was nesting these up, 5 to a stick, 5 or 6 to a stick. So I think what is it, 100? I think 100 of these cross links end up costing me like $20, which, I can't do that. I can't do that on. So not like what you're thinking. So yes and no. So I live in Oregon. If I was to get my ASTM in Oregon, I would have to go to work for somebody underneath their license for 7 years, which means I'm not self-employed. So I started this shop in 94. I bought the building in 1996, and I've been self-employed since then. So I took a lot of classes for engineering and did that, but if I were to finish out my engineering degree, then I have to carry the insurance that I have to carry in order to operate my machine shop, because I'd be a licensed engineer, costs way too much. I mean, manufacturing engineering right now is super, super expensive to be, a manufacturing engineer. So what I did is I took all the classes and didn't finish out. Because whereas I was self-employed, what good is a degree to me? I mean, I know how to do the math, I know how to do the calculations, but the piece of paper is really not worth it to me, because I've been self-employed for 30 years, and I don't plan on giving it up now. And the companies that I work for, that I do engineering for, they don't really care about the piece of paper. They're like, we know your work. And most of the stuff, like when I'm doing it for Super Bowl and stuff, there's a senior engineer that goes over the top of it anyways. Oh, it totally is. I mean, so last time I was in school was in, what was it, 96, and I was paying as I was going, because I didn't want to accumulate a pile of debt. I mean, it's like my daughter, she just got her bachelor's for speech language pathology, and to be saddled with all of that debt, just getting in and starting, it is. So, right, no, it's about the skills. It isn't about the paper. And that, and when you get to be, I mean, I guess it has value, like, when you're just starting out, because you don't have a bunch of, past projects that you can prove yourself on. But say, like in my case, where I had already been doing a bunch of the engineering and stuff, the paper wasn't worth it. But really, the thing that dissuaded me, um, so there was a guy, Stephen Wright, that he was a project manager also on Super Bowl, and this was about, oh, what would this be? This was like the Santa Clara Super Bowl, I think Super Bowl 50. Um, Stephen he had finished out all of his courses, and he had got his real life ticket. He had worked for, his oversight, company for 7-8 years, and he was finally stepping out on his own. But his E&O insurance that's errors and omission. If you're going to be a professional engineer, ASTM, you have to have that insurance, and it was like $15,000 a year, whether you did work or you did no work. And so it was just every year, if you're going to be working, you have to pay 15 grand for E&O. And I had asked him, we were working on the I think it was CBS at that time. We were working on the load bearing supports for the CBS studio at the stadium. Here's what I'm putting together. And he was like, I wish I had never got my certificate, because now that I have it, I have to carry all this extra insurance, and it really takes it out of you. It takes all the fun out of it. Yeah, and that's just if you're going to be, working, you have to have, I think his was 810, so 8 million, 10 million total liability insurance for errors and omission. Because he was doing, foreign media and Super Bowl and that type of stuff, and he's just like, it isn't worth it to get your paper. And because at that time I was, I've been doing kind of the same thing for a while. So before 2008, I was doing ornamental iron and structural steel for the building industry here in the valley. And, I was doing pretty good. I do spiral staircases, ornamental iron, structural steel, that type of stuff. And I was killing it. I do about 150 grand in labor a year, 200 sometimes. And, it's like, oh, well, maybe I should, start doing engineering, get my paper and all of that. And then I started talking to people that had actually gone down that road and done it. And they're like, man, because, once you graduate, you are responsible for everything. No. Okay, so I have to carry, for the business, I carry E&O, so errors and omission, but I only have to do 1 million, 2 million, and, I carry site insurance, but I don't have to carry it, so I have to carry it for completed manufactured goods. Say I build something and, it falls down, someone gets killed, whatever, but I don't have to carry the same type of insurance that, engineers and that type of stuff have to carry. Oh my gosh, yes. No. But it's it's a necessary evil. I mean, you can't really survive without it, but with the way that insurance is being lately, you can't really afford to be with it either. I mean, I know that my rates this last year just about doubled. So I went from, something that I could afford to, oh my gosh. So I'm still figuring out what I'm going to do here, because I'm not doing the same type of work that I used to. Now I'm making hands, doing YouTube, taking on the odd job. I'm starting to try to get into just the lighter work, something that's easier on my body that I don't, because the thing is, YouTube is not paying the bills like it used to. I mean, I'm sure you've heard this from other creators. The amount that they take, it's like during COVID, I would make $3,000-4,000 a month, because everybody was stuck at home watching videos. Now I make, a couple $100 a month. My accountant is all the time on me going, why do you spend so much time making videos, and doing that when you could be doing, real work, in the shop? Because, it's like, say like a 3-minute video, you'll have about 20 hours by the time you do. So there you go. You'll have about 20 hours by the time you write the script and shoot it, edit it, to make, if you only get, say, like 100,000 views, you're going to make like $50. So that's a poor use of time. Whereas if I'm doing shop stuff, I make $150 an hour doing shop stuff. But, I have, it's like I've made videos in the past that for years and years and years, you're getting paid, over and over for them. So, but I write the videos off as advertisement. Absolutely. So insurance is great and terrible. So if you don't have insurance, you qualify for a 75% write down, and, your bill is, say if you had like a $2,000 bill, they would write it down to like $200. But if you have insurance, then the bill goes to $4,000. I mean, that makes no sense. And I tell you, I don't get that. I mean, it just seems so unfair. Ooh, that one is tight. That one pulled a lot. Ooh. Let's see if we can break a mag aluminum part, because that is too tight. So how would adding hydraulic fluid to my hand make it stronger? Are you talking about adding a pump and control valves and then control circuitry and making it myoelectric and all of that? Because the main reason I don't do that is because of the weight and complexity. Oh, totally. Absolutely. It should be the same thing for everybody. Level playing field. It's like an MRI costs what an MRI costs. So these chains are a third the size of, or maybe a quarter the size of bike chains. So these are 3/16 center to center on the pin and a 1/4 inch wide. They're a number 15 miniature micro roller chain. There's one size smaller, but it doesn't really exist. You can get it as it's a number 10, but it only exists in a catalog. Yeah. No, I've designed splay. I designed splay probably 3 years ago. So, so I've done a lot of Burning Man. I've done, I did for Root Society and Jeff Taylor for Burning Man. That was pretty interesting. That was, I put a 44-foot icosahedron dome up on 5 tetrahedrons with flamethrowers and stripper poles in the middle of the desert. That was pretty awesome. I've done interior stadium project manager for the Super Bowl for 14 Super Bowls. I built everything above the waterline for Batman Returns. I mean, that was a zillion years ago. That was back in like 90, 93, 94, somewhere there. I've built candy bar machines that, go from, raw powder goods to, finished wrapped packaged candy bars in like 200 yards. I mean, I've done a lot of different things. Awesome. Well, check back. I mean, I do these lives generally on Sundays when I'm down to the shop, just, tapping parts. Thanks. So, I mean, I've done a lot of things. I've built a couple cars. I've done, yes, I have done rolling contact. I did that back at 150, what was that? I think that was part of 157 was the rolling contact finger. And it worked good in the shop. It did not work good in the real world. Kevlar strings are awesome until the real world gets onto them. You know, and then as soon as they nick or fray or anything, and even if you wax them, you know, as soon as they get just a little bit abraded, they turn into garbage. All the time. If I go outside, if I go out in the real world, I am wearing my hand. You know, the only reason why I'm not right now is, well, first I have to take it apart because it's dirty, but I'm tapping these tiny little parts. Let's see, I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 more. So 20 more, 24 more. So since it's mechanical, it's only as strong as I am. So if you are super strong, then you'll have good grip strength. If you are not super strong, your grip strength won't be as much. So, but I can pick up 110 pounds. There's a video either on YouTube or TikTok of me doing that. So, but, okay, so miniature hydraulics, because I've seen that a couple times in the comments. So think about how much of your energy is lost to heat in hydraulics. You know, a tremendous amount. You know, now I have thought about, you know, there briefly, I experimented with a wind-up hydraulic system to where by actuating your wrist, you would pump up the hydraulic reservoir, and then you'd use, you know, tiny hydraulic cylinders. But the thing is, the smaller the cylinder, the higher pressure that you have to go with. So, you know, if you're dealing with a cylinder that's, say, a 1/4 inch diameter, which by the time you had an outer casing and, you know, an outer, you know, just the outside cylinder, you know, that's going to be about the size you're looking for. So, you know, a 1/4 inch piston, and you're going to go with an 1/8 inch rod. In order for it to generate, say, 100 pounds of force, which you'd need about that because you have, you know, a 40-to-1 reduction, you know, the pressures that you end up having to go to are, you know, well, okay, so a 1/4 inch diameter is about a 1/16 of an inch. So if you're trying to get to 100 pounds, so that's 16, you know, you'd have to have it like 16,000 pounds to get it to 1 inch, to get it to 100 pounds on the cylinder. You know, none of your hydraulic brake line for mountain bikes doesn't get that high. You know, it's only good to, I think, 1,000 pounds. You know, and then what are you going to do for, you know, for valving? You know, control valving. You know, it ends up being a huge... Right, but, okay, so, say we do... So, I wouldn't do air, because air compresses. You know, and then you have to have an air compressor, and then... But, you know, most of all, air compresses, where hydraulic doesn't. So, you know, a pneumatic cylinder is completely different than a hydraulic cylinder, or, you know, a hydraulic system. You know, but really, it's the valving. Okay, but think about it. So Magura brakes may have all the power, but think about the diameter of the piston. That's where it gets the power. You know, it's the amount of distance traveled with the piston, and then the diameter of. Yeah. No, on my Suron, I run Hope brakes. I'm familiar with it, but they don't go to the pressures that you'd need if you're going to run a tiny cylinder. You got to figure the cylinders on, say a four puck, brake like the X4. It's 3/4 of an inch in diameter. You don't have that type of space in this. I mean, you're absolutely more than welcome to invest the time, money, and effort into doing it, but I'm just going to say you're going to run out of space. It still goes back to, distance traveled for pressure. If you're going to have a shorter distance traveled, then you have to up the pressure. What do I think about blacks? I I don't I don't care. Like African American people? Who cares? They're people. Everybody's just people. Oh my gosh. That's insane. Oh, we don't have that. We have something called REI, but we don't have a store called Blacks. Where? I didn't see that in the UK. I went to the UK last year. Oh yeah, Field and Stream. We used to have a Field and Stream. Then it became, what did it become? I think it became a Dick's Sporting Goods or something like that. Mm, yeah, yeah. Back when I was in treatment at UAMS in Little Rock, Arkansas, for a stem cell, I went to the Cabela's Bass Pro Shop, the Pyramid in Tennessee. And that was pretty cool. That was really awesome. That they had that. It's in Memphis. Um, it's just a great big pyramid, and that's what the store is. That's what the store is in. They have a restaurant at the very very top. Ends up costing you $5 to ride the elevator up to the top so you can have overpriced food. I thought that was just crazy. So I have not. We have a Cracker Barrel in town, but I've never gone to it. I'm not much for the buffet kind of. I don't know. It's kind of like old people's food. That's kind of where your grandma always wants to go, is to the Cracker Barrel. So never been to it. Yeah. Okay. So I use a 5mm by 30mm spring in the finger, and I use this type of little bracket, and that goes inside the metacarpal base. And what that does is it goes in the center of the proximal one to the metacarpal base, and that's what forces the finger back open. See, that's how dirty my hand is. It's super draggy. So, but that's what presses the finger back open. I take it apart. I use acetone and I use brake clean. Sometimes diesel, kerosene. Kind of depends on what I'm. And then for lubrication, I use a dry silicone spray. I think I'm going to quit after like the next couple of these and start taking my hand apart. Otherwise, I'm going to run out of time today. Yeah, but like the diesel, if you're using kerosene or stuff, nope. So carbon fiber is not an option. Like say for a medial, how are you going to make this out of carbon fiber? Say if you were to take, and start with a block, as soon as you mill through the carbon fiber strand. No, this is real live. Or are you saying, am I reading the comments? Am I reading the comments? Yes, I'm reading the comments. Awesome. Have a great one. All right. So, plastic is not strong enough. Just, that's it. Okay, so the amount of travel that the proximal one rotates. So this is the proximal one. This is the proximal two. This little piece right here is where the chain connects. So this distance from here to here is about 1 centimeter. Okay, and it travels about 1 centimeter in rotation to actuate a finger that's about 100 centimeters long. So you have 100-to-1 ratio between the chain moving and the finger curling. Okay, so if you put 100 pounds here, you're putting 10,000 pounds here. Plastic doesn't work. It's just not strong enough. And that's why I'm using the mag aluminum. So I hope that helps. So plastic just isn't strong enough. I'm experimenting with it if it's strong enough for the sockets. The problem with the plastic is, it'll be strong enough right at the beginning, but after you put, like 10,000 actuations on it, it fractures. It separates. You still end up with like layer separation and stuff. And I mean, last oh, it was longer ago than last year. I mean, it's been a couple years since I was doing, 3D printed hands. Um, but they just weren't strong enough. So it's like I've been experimenting with PPS and that's an interesting plastic, but you end up having to temper it and cure it. Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate that. I mean, plastic has come a long way, from where it just started, with, ABS, PLA, carbon fiber and all of that. And it's awesome that, like with the Creality K2 and that type of machine, that just, Joe homeowner, a guy that puts down, what's a K2? $1,400, something like that. That you put down $1,400 and all of a sudden you can do all of these engineering grade plastics. That is amazing. Yeah, no, this is SLS mag aluminum. So magnesium aluminum. And for most of the things, it's pretty strong. So actually, in the couple years that I've been using the mag aluminum from PCBWay, I haven't had so I haven't actually had any of the components out of mag aluminum actually break. Which is awesome. They've all been, but I mean, that's also, I'm engineering them for their purpose too. Yeah, the Tasca hand is pretty, and where it's waterproof and all of that. They just came out with, I think, like the Model 4. Super cool, and it seems to be pretty fast. Unfortunately, or I mean, fortunately, I'm not a Dissertic through the wrist or, transradial, but, it looks like an awesome hand. Hold on. I gotta grab something to eat. So, okay, so, what do we got? I need some glasses. Okay. Oh, I have an iLim. I have an iDigits Quantum. And it is so fragile. I broke a finger taking a hoodie off. It was so fragile. And it's like $5,000. Actually, I got my iLim right here. So here is my boop. Here is my iDigits Quantum. And it lives in my toolbox because mine was, I think they invoiced my insurance for like $88,000 for it, and it literally didn't last. We'll go 2 minutes to reheat that. 2 minutes. It literally didn't last a week. And it was, I don't know. I was so frustrated. I mean, Porcelain. Well, porcelain would be okay until you dropped it. Um, and I mean, casting and dealing with shrinkage. I mean, you got to remember these are tiny parts with voids and inclusions. So the amount of molding that you would have to do would just be incredible in order to get some of these parts. So here's a socket that I've been working on. I'm actually going to be trying printing this in TPU and carbon fiber. So have kind of the inside of it all be out of TPU. I'm going to do that on the Prusa XL because you just in the slicer you just paint where you want it to be TPU. Yeah, I could punch or slap with my hand. Thing is, I own stuff, so I don't. The reason is because, okay, say if you were to add, okay, you can add my watch. I've put a watch on a couple of the hands. And it's a cool looking, it's a cool looking ad. But, okay, so say if you were to, like with your example, you said Swiss Army, a Swiss Army knife type thing. Okay, so a Swiss Army knife weighs what? 7 ounces? 5-6 ounces? You have to pack that around every day, all the time, whether you're using it or not, because it's integrated into your prosthetic hand. It just ends up being, okay, but then you have to do, but then say LEDs, then you got to do batteries and then a switch, and, it just ends up being, yeah, no, I mean, it's extra weight. My prosthetic hand weighs right at a kilogram. So about 2 pounds, a little over 2 pounds. And, I wouldn't want it to weigh any more than that. I mean, you get used to the weight. I mean, I used to... Yeah, there for a minute, I did that on the medial of the finger. And it was so I could have a flashlight in my index finger. And it was, I don't know, it was cool, but, the batteries died, and, see, you're in a different situation because you have to have batteries for your Tasca hand to move. Whereas mine's all mechanical, I don't have batteries. So, I don't have to worry about, batteries charging. I don't have to, any of that. That is not that good. I should have got something else for lunch. It was a poor choice. Is that Kevin King, the prosthetist in, I think, Tennessee? Right? Oh yeah, no, I saw the Aura stuff. I don't know, last year or something. And I couldn't find a use for it. I mean, it's like, okay, for biohacking and digital security, I guess it's got its place, to prove for identity, um, because everybody's, cardiac rhythm is going to be different. But I don't know. I don't see why you'd want it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, stuff like that. I kind of think technology has gone too far on a lot of it. 100 years ago, we didn't worry about, any of that type of thing. I mean, like, what type of engineering? I mean, are you talking, I'm sitting at a desk just doing CAD all day, or are you talking about actually making stuff? Because if you're talking about making stuff, and it would depend upon, you know, where you are age-wise. Yeah, I mean, if you're, early 20s and you're into making stuff, I would say go to work for like a sheet metal shop that makes just general, car parts, suspension parts, whatever, and get into it that way. Start by starting making stuff. Because generally, if you're working at a shop like that, I know the first shop that I worked at, if you wanted to work on projects after hours, you could use all the machines that, you were qualified on during the day, and as long as, you weren't breaking anything, tearing anything up, nobody really cared if you were doing, after hours work. So I would say, get a job at either a machine shop, but when I say machine shop, I mean a real machine shop, not like a button pusher shop to where, you're a machine operator, a shop that has conventional machines, where you actually turn the dials and you're, actually doing something, not just programming a computer. But if you're wanting to be just a desk jockey, that's a little tougher. You have to do that generally conventional education. Go to college, get a bunch of debt, that type of thing. So I would start out, finding a local shop like mine, plasma cutter, press brake, couple milling machines, just a shop that makes stuff. Yeah, okay, so absolutely you can do CAD, but like if you're working at a shop that uses CAD, generally you can do on-the-job training for that. And absolutely you can do, community. I used to teach the community college for AutoCAD, and yeah, I mean, my course schedule was always full. I would always have 20 or 30 people every term. So yes, but I would have to go at it with a different intent. No, the solar panels wouldn't generate enough power to be usable. You got to figure the amount of power that a wristwatch uses is super, super tiny. Anytime that you move the finger, or any of the time that it's monitoring your hand to see if you're contracting or tensing a muscle, it's using that power. So, can I feel with the hand? Yes and no. No thanks, Fred. My friend Fred was just calling me. So when I close my hand on something, then I can feel it by how it presses on the back of my hand and on the end of my metacarpals and where the socket ends on my forearm. That's how I feel. You know, you can feel how hard you're picking something up, how good you're. So this current iteration idea for the project is to make a mechanical device, doesn't have batteries, doesn't care about getting wet or anything like that. Okay. If I was going to go myoelectric, then you're adding, and then also I'm kind of doing the DIY thing to where somebody else would be able to put it together. When I did the grip pattern selection back several devices ago, that was a complex, piece of, mechanics. And it's not something that, it's something that you had to, continuously dink with. It just took a lot of maintenance, and that's why I got rid of grip pattern selection. But if you were going to add electronics and stuff, then your durability goes down and, that type of thing. It just doesn't become, it depends on how much water I've drank. If I'm super swollen, then it's not super awesome. It really goes, and that's why, like when I was on the videos that I do for how to make a socket, it really is, how well your socket fits. If you don't have a socket that fits really well, then, your prosthetic isn't going to fit well. You aren't going to want to wear it. It's going to most likely, end up on a shelf. So the more comfortable that you can make the socket, the more comfortable you are going to be wearing the device. Also, I think that's why it's important that the person that, I think it's important that the person that wears the socket knows how to fine-tune the socket. Because, a clinician, they get paid by the hour. They want to get it in and out and, as few hours as they can in order to get, the device done. So they're... But if you know how to fine-tune the fit of the socket, then you can spend as much time as it takes in order to get it fit just right. Okay, so I lost my fingers because I have terminal cancer. I went to so I have multiple myeloma. It's a hematological cancer, kind of like leukemia, that affects your skeleton. Basically, you get improper proteins that form inside your bones, and it makes your bones have holes in them and the density go way down. So it started off by breaking my back. I broke C2-3, 10-11-12, and 4-5-S1. And then I had lytic lesions in the femoral necks of both of my femurs in my hips. So then I went to UAMS in Little Rock, Arkansas, University of Arkansas Medical Sciences, and I did a procedure called VDT PACE. That's 108 hours of continuous infusion for chemo. It's called consolidation. You do that 4 times. On the last time, you do consolidation and collection. So you do basically like dialysis. They inject you with a compound called Granix. that makes your bones exude all of your immature B and T cells, along with your what is it? Cytoblasts, immature stem cells. So you want to collect at least 28 million of those cells during that procedure. Sometimes it takes 2 days. Then you go home, you come back in about 3 weeks where they've taken that magic brew of your goo, found a virgin and a chicken, and they make, the goo that's going to rescue you. And then they inject you with something called melphalan, which is basically nitrogen mustargen gas, and it kills you. So all of your quick dividing cells, your bones die, your esophageal lining dies, just any of your quick dividing cells die. You stop making blood. So they give you 36 hours for you to clear the melphalan, and then you do a bunch of blood tests to make sure that it's cleared. And if it has, then you get your first 8 million transplanted cells. Now, I did an autologous stem cell transplant, so I wouldn't have to be on anti-rejection drugs forever. And then mine took, and then it starts your system back up, because, your system, it came from your system, so it knows where and what to start up. So, for the next year, you don't really have an immune system. You're on antivirals. You're on, actually, for the first 100 days, you could die at any time. And sometimes you do. You'll go into, cardiac arrest, or, DVT, or, you'll just die. So within my 100 days, I started working back at my shop, and I was bending up a piece of metal, and I grabbed it wrong, and I broke the proximals, these bones. I broke the proximals of my left hand. And because I didn't have an immune system to speak of, so first off, after I broke them, nobody down here really wanted to touch me, because, you're still within your 100 days. And you could die at any time. So they're like, nope, we aren't touching you. So I found a hand surgeon up at Slocum in, about 200 miles away, that they were willing to work on me. And what they did is they put K-wires in my fingers, into the center of the bones to kind of set the proximal bones. And what eventually happened, I ended up getting a site infection where the pins went through my skin. So then it went, what was it? Blood infection, bone infection, septicemia, gangrene, you're going to die. That was the progression of it. And what they ended up doing was take a finger off in order to lessen the infective load on your system. And then you go back home, you come back up in a week, they look at you and go, you are not healing very well. You're scheduled for emergency surgery tomorrow. We're going to take another finger off. So they take another finger off. And then you go home, come back. Man, whatever's eating you on the inside, it is really killing you. They take another finger off. Go back home, come back up. Dude, you're about to die. This is going to be your last surgery, because we're not sure that you're going to make it if we put you down anymore. So they, it's like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean here? Does that mean here? Does that mean here? And they don't want to give you an answer because they don't know. So they opened up my hand, and at this time I was living in the hospital again, because, all the time that I was at the stem cell transplant, I was living in the hospital at UAMS. So that was like 8 months. Living in the hospital, half the United States, well, more than half the United States away from where I live. And I did it alone. My wife didn't come, so that kind of sucked. So um, they ended up being able to clean the infection where it was. They ended up having to trim a little bit of the bone of the metacarpal of my ring finger just to clean up some of the infection, but closed it up, and that was kind of it. Then I got on, rotating array of silver bullet antibiotics, because I still had this systemic infection. They were afraid of it, getting into my heart, and then once that happens, you just die. So it sucked. I mean, I had a rough couple of years. I had 2 years there that were actually, it was 3 years. I had 3 years that were pretty bad. Because I had gone from, self-employed, 65 and sunny, to you break your back, you're going to die. Well, thanks. All right, am I currently? No. So I have to do what's called maintenance chemo forever. I now do it once a month. It's an 8 hour to 9 hour procedure, and I mean, truthfully, my cancer's back, so that kind of sucks. Next oncology meeting, we're going to pick a number. So in my blood cancer, you're looking for what's called an M spike. It's a monoclonal protein, and say like when I first started, my M spike was at like 6,500, and I had about 6 months, before infection was just gonna kill me. So right now, my M spike's small. I'm at around the 400. 400 milligrams per deciliter, which, that's still plenty manageable. But, we need to pick a number that's going to be the number that I go and do transplant again. So, and that'll take probably a year. So it'll probably be like next year, maybe the year after, that I have to do stem cell transplant again. But hopefully I qualify for something called CAR T, which is supposed to be not a cure, but as close to a cure as what they're comfortable saying. But it's the same whole procedure as doing a stem cell transplant. You do the consolidation, you do the Granix, consolidation collection, and then they kill you. But what they do is, rather than just reintroducing your stem cells, they create I guess you consider it a tailored vaccine. I mean, it's not really a vaccine, but they teach your B and T cells what your version of cancer really looks like, so that it actually attacks it within your bones. And they've been really successful with it, and the technology has come such a long way from where it was when I did my stem cell transplant. When I first did it, people would die of inflammation, 15, 20 minutes after receiving their infusion. And now people are getting, 10 years, 15 years prospectus, which is awesome. You go from, you got 6 months to, it is. I mean, it's actually amazing. It is black magic voodoo, honestly. It is truly amazing what they've been able to do. And it's all CRISPR and gene editing, gene splicing, and all that. It's so incredible. So, I mean, that's how I lost my fingers. Now, the cruel twist of the universe is back when I was graduating high school, we had to do a thing called the senior project. Where you make a physical thing, you give a speech, you do a research paper, that type of thing. So for my senior project, I designed and developed a fully ambulatory robotic arm using myoelectronics. And then 30 years later, I'm back to building fully ambulatory robotic arms without myoelectronics. So that's kind of cool. I mean, a cruel twist of the universe. Oh, yeah, no. So at UAMS on floor 4, you can have whatever. We aren't regulated by the menu. Because people on heavy chemo, you'll have, for me, it was anything tomato-based or anything that had like a cream to it. Man, I'd be throwing that up immediately. So on floor 4, you could order anything that you wanted for food. And that was the best thing about that. And then you figure out, the hospital hacks. You go, okay, I figured out that I didn't have to get scrambled eggs, I could get fried eggs. And then, you get a little slice of ham, and then, you get some cheese, and then, you can get, 2 English muffins. And, that's how I figured out how to make breakfast sandwiches in the morning, rather than having to go with whatever they were, selling you for breakfast, for the regular people at the hospital. And it's like, that's the only way that I was able to make it through that. That sucked so bad. Yeah. Living in the hospital sucks. Thanks. I think so. I think they're the most functional. The tough thing for me is like the FDA and all of that, being able to get them into clinic and used by other people. Because if I advertise, that I'm building these for people, the FDA, can come down and, shut me out and, fine me and put me in jail and all that, because I'm operating without a proper licensure or clinic. It's a $100,000 fine per occurrence and 10 years in federal prison for every device that I was to make for somebody. But if a licensed clinician contacts me and say, hey, I'd like you to build this device, I can do that all day long. And it's because they have the insurance, they have a clinic, they've, got all the certification and stuff, which, it is so tough, because I have this thing that, I really think, helps people, and it's like, I build, little gadgets and stuff for people. And, and I've done a couple videos on, the people that are cool with me showing the gadgets that I'm building for them. It's like, Mark and Cindy, I built him, he was a musician. He got PID and sepsis, basically food poisoning, and then sepsis from that. And his hands, his feet, his nose, part of his lower jaw, all died basically overnight. And he was a musician. And what I did is I built him a set of guitar hands so that he could go back to playing lap steel guitar. And his wife later told me that completely 180'd his world. He was not doing good. He was kind of circling the drain a little bit, just, depression, all of that type of thing. until I made him, these gadgets. And I mean, and they were truly gadgets. They were nothing that was magical. But it allowed him to go back to doing stuff that he really liked. And then I made him, and I did a video on this, his golf hands, because he was a dysarticulation, transradial, and then he had to have a revision on his left, maybe it was his right arm. He had a revision on one of them, so they weren't the same length anymore. He originally was through the wrist, but it allowed him, at the end of the video, I think the title of the video is Golf Hands or something like that, he was able to chip a ball from my driveway to the neighbor's building. And I mean, it was awesome. So what he does now, their house backs up to a city park, is when his wife's at work, he'll go out into the park, during the summer, not during the winter, of course, but he'll go in the park and he'll chip balls, and then their dog goes and, snatches the golf balls back. So I'm trying to do this by doing it just on YouTube. Not so much, and the thing is, it's not like, everybody thinks that 3D printing is the answer. And, 3D printing at home, it isn't strong enough for any long-term durable design. Like, for instance, so here is a forearm cuff that I've been working on, and this is out of PPSCF. And, you would think that it would be all kinds of strong. And it is strong for about a month and a half. And then, because it's where all of the force gets, applied to it, it ends up getting microfractures and layer separation. So, I mean, the plastic is great. It's nice, it's lightweight, but it's just the wrong medium. It's just not right. I'm still experimenting with it. It might be something that you end up, fiberglass resin casting and, getting that to work that way. But, even like with the socket, I mean, this one fits pretty okay. But, if I were to put this inside of a hand, eventually, right here is going to end up fracturing, just from the constant loading, unloading. And I mean, truthfully, by the time you go and you scan it and print it, it would be quicker to do the vacuum resin composites like what I normally do. So I think that fiberglass and vacuum resin composites are the way to do it. And like what I've done with this and what I've done in the past on other things is to make the molds for that by 3D printing. Like, for instance, okay, so here's a plaster buck of my forearm. So what I did to generate this is I used my Ferret Pro scanner. I scanned my forearm. I brought it into Mesh Mixer, chopped off the hand, chopped off the, got it to where it was just this section, and then offset that skin by 3 millimeters and 3D printed it out of PLA, ABS, whatever was in the machine, and I used that to make the plaster buck. So, I mean, for form generation, like the scanner and the printer and all that is amazing, because you can make, a true to fit, shape with it. But for making the actual usable parts, 3D printing is not where it's at. Just, it's the wrong material. If you could get rid of all the layer lines to where you wouldn't have layer separation, that might be a thing. But just the inherent process of how the parts are made with 3D printing, it's not the deal. The fiberglass and vacuum resin composites, I've used sockets, I've had sockets that I've used for a couple of years, and they're still just as strong as what they were at the beginning. Whereas the one of these that I made that I was using a couple months ago, it ended up lasting almost 3 months, and then it started coming apart on layer lines. So then I tried a different orientation and ran into the same issue. So, I found that the best way to orient it was this way, so you have, layer lines like this, but I don't know, because all the pulling is here, it's pulling right here. So, I don't know, it's good for the initial modeling and for the shape generation, but, and then also, with the vacuum composites, basically fiberglass and fabric, because I use like toddler socks, and then fiberglass roving, and like 4 or 5 layers of that, and then put that into a vacuum, and it makes a nice condensed. You could do it with carbon fiber just the same. That's how carbon fiber uses. You're just using a different epoxy. And it would work just the same. But when you go and you trim it and tune the shape up, if you were doing carbon fiber, then you're going to have exposed edges of either the cloth, and the problem with carbon fiber is when it's in direct contact to your skin, the fibers will break off and get into your skin. And where it's carbon, you can't, an X-ray won't pick it up. So, an X-ray won't pick it up. And that becomes a problem because, say if you get an infection in there, they can't tell if they've actually taken the, gotten all of it out of you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Where are you from? All of these parts are SLS, mag aluminum. Yeah, I work with PCBWay. They're a channel sponsor. I've also tried working with HP, and they're on and off good. And then I did try, so with HP, I tried the socket in SLS nylon, PA12. And what I found was that over time, it wasn't as strong as what I needed. The vacuum composites were way stronger than the SLS. You just end up getting microfractures because, every time you flex the fingers, you end up getting little microfractures. And hello, Mr. D. So, it's good for a couple months, and then it ends up breaking. And that's the difficulty. You need a socket to last. Generally, if you're going to run it through insurance, they want a socket to last generally 3 years. The the expected lifespan on a prosthetic device is 3 years. So, you need sockets to last, at least 5. And the plastic, I just haven't found it. Um, and I've tried a bunch of different materials, test sockets and that type of thing. Absolutely works great. But, then you end up, you're going to build a plaster one, and then you're going to do vacuum composites. Just because, fiberglass is just so much stronger. It doesn't have layer lines. It doesn't have... Oh, absolutely. So, as far as shrinkage, it takes about 6 months, 6 to 8 months for your residual limb to kind of settle into a shape. But like with me, with the blood cancer, I have diminished kidney function. So if I drink too much water or if I don't drink enough water, then my residual limb will either swell or shrink depending upon, how much I've drank. So it's like if I, drink a bunch of water, the next day, my hand may not fit for nothing, but after a couple days of not drinking, then, it's going to be all kinds of swimming inside the socket, so living with this type of thing, you really kind of have to monitor your ins and outs, just to make sure that, and then also, you have to maintain, a pretty consistent body weight. It's like, when I got sick in like all of February, February, part of the reason why I was gone is I ended up getting double pneumonia. Then I got over that. Then I got bronchitis, and then I got pneumonia again. And that was all of my February, and kind of in my beginning of March. Actually, it was like the last weeks of January, all of February, and then a little bit of March. And I ended up losing like 25 pounds for that. And my prosthetic hands were so sloppy loose. It was I could almost not wear them. It was that bad. But yeah, no, 3D scanning is absolutely amazing. So I am kind of the same. I have like 3 drugs that I can use for pneumonia. My current favor is doxycycline, because after the stem cell transplant, I'm allergic to penicillin and vancomycin, which unfortunately are 2 of the primary antibiotics that they use for respiratory infections. Yeah, and that it sucks because that means that all of the penicillin based antibiotics you're allergic to also, which and that sucks because so many things are based off penicillin. All right. Well, I think that's about as much of that horrible lunch that I can stand. Let's go take apart my hand and clean it up. So I'm going to need... Okay, so I have a little bit of diesel. I'm going to look for some PB Lester. I know I bought some, but getting stuff. So, and then I use the silicone spray. It's really good. Oh, maybe it's back in the studio. Probably need some rags. I have some diesel. Oh, a couple red rags. Oh, need some paper towels. Got some paper towels. What else do I need? go take it apart and put it back together. And I have some grease. I use something called Lubriplate. It's a molybdenum disulfide type grease oil. Oh, and there is the PB Blaster. All right, so PB Blaster, brake clean, silicone. Let's take it apart. Okay, I'm going to need to get a tooling block so I can move you guys closer so I can actually see when you type me something. Oh, I bet I could use this block. All right, I'm going to use a tool block, and that'll hold the camera. Okay, let's scoot off a little clean spot on the desk. Perfect. Awesome. All right. So this is what I end up using for. This is the leftovers from that little hand gadget that I made Alex from Carl's Jr. back a couple months ago. I made him basically like a little grabber thing for his hand, so he could, grab a shovel and that type of stuff. I guess that just completely changed his world, which is super awesome. I love being able to help people, to where it, changes their outlook and, kind of just improves their lives. I love that. All right. Plugging in the phone. There we go. Perfect. All right. So, clean off a space. A little bit of a space. Put all my parts. So I made a pile of the mounting rails for left and right hands, because I have 2 left hands that I'm making, and I have 2 rights. I ended up changing how the bottom interfaces with the metacarpal bases. Now, rather than doing a keter like what I was doing at the top, see, the tops have a cutout that kind of looks like that. And then that sets the amount of angle that the metacarpal bases can swing. Now that's only on the tops. So, I don't know. It's a lot. It is a lot of stuff. And then this is Chris's winder. He's the guy that came to the shop, and I scanned his residual limb. This is his model. So this is for his build. I'm just about done with that, which is awesome. And then this is for Brandon. This is Brandon's build. And then Oleg is going to be... Actually, I think Oleg is going to be this one. You know, it's kind of hard to get back in the groove of doing the videos and, you know, all of that. Well, thank you. Well, that's awesome. Being an archaeologist in the middle of nowhere. That's super cool. All right. So, all right. This is my current daily driver. And it is super dirty. It needs some loving. So we should give it some loving. First thing we need is a box. All right. So let's start. I mean, I guess the great thing is if I end up breaking any parts, I can always make more parts. But the bad thing is if I break any parts, I need to make the parts. Okay. Oh, I need my little tweezers. Got my forceps. Oh my gosh. You know, it's been, what up? So it's been months since I've taken this hand apart. And it is so dirty. All right, now to the back. Take the chains off first. And I think I'm going to replace the sliders. Boop, boop. I think I'm going to replace the sliders with the new SLA sliders. The ones that I had out of mag aluminum. I think I'm going to replace those. And if I end up repairing the grip pattern selector thing, I need to print a new swivel, because my swivel died the other day, right when I was in the middle of doing stuff too. That's always when your hand is going to break. It's right when you're doing stuff. All right. Oops. Okay. Take the fingers off. Fingers are 4 more bolts. And then these 2. And then the 2 on the bottom. And then the fingers will be off. And then I need to replace all the springs too. Okay, now so these 2 bolts are the worst to get apart. Yeah. Hey. Who is it? Hold on, I got somebody at the door. Huh? Oh, hey. Yeah, no, I'm doing a YouTube live.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt. I can go.
Oh, no. Absolutely. Stay for the live.
You're talking to people right now?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I see.
I got like 38 people.
Oh, cool.
Woo.
Yeah, I'll watch for a bit, sure. Am I in the way?
No, I'm just right here on my cell phone.
Very cool.
Yeah. So what are you doing?
Dropped my son off. Just did some more dirt biking. I'm sore, beat up from riding yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. What you doing? You're demonstrating?
I'm taking apart my hand because it's dirty.
Oh. Yeah.
And so I'm going to be going to Detroit in the next, what is it, 2 weeks for Rapid TCT, where I have to give a half-hour presentation on 3D printing and what I see the future of it going to be and how Creality is going to be part of that adventure. So, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. These bolts are the worst to get out. I need to redesign part of it. Because,
access to the head.
yeah. It's like I can get part of it, but, then it's just peeling off that and getting,
Yeah, I see.
There's
just a million things to think about with all the mechanics of that.
It is.
Everything affects everything.
And it's layered.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just layers and layers.
Sequences is definitely, you have to remember your sequence, I'm sure.
Yeah, order of operations is huge.
Okay, order of operations does.
Yeah.
So what do you clean with? What is your ideal cleaning situation? I mean, brake clean? Yeah.
Brake clean and PB blaster.
Yeah.
And diesel.
For clean, just to clean and to lubricate, and you end with diesel, and then what? Blow off, wipe off?
Diesel and silicone.
Okay. And none of that. How do you keep from attracting shit? Is what I wonder. I guess you really can't to some degree.
A lot of it, you don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'll do sometimes is then acetone for like a final wash.
Yeah.
To kind of.
But then you're stripped of lubricants, right?
You do. But if you just do the, if you just kind of do the surface for like, getting diesel off of this area, but, you leave it on the inside, so just kind of get it off the top. Then it's pretty okay. But
I just had a thought watching you take it apart. I've got a little Festool electric, like not an impact, but it's a little handheld for little screws and all that. You got one already? I was gonna say all that twisting and turning, man. Yeah, so it's a little bigger than that. Might be a little palm guy, but you got one then.
Yeah.
It's electric, it turns?
Electric, yeah.
Oh, you just don't like using it, huh?
Well, 440s and 256s,
Okay. Yeah.
How did those I gave you 256s, right?
Yeah, those were good. And I actually I went and bought some more from Ace a few days later just to have. So
I can
also replenish some of yours as well.
Cool.
I forgot to bring them, but
oh no, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can just see how just
totally
gross. I mean, it's just gross.
I know. I live in a shop too. Everything's
super gross. So, and
would a sonic cleaner benefit in any situation?
Yes and no. So when it's vibrating all the little bits of dirt and grit, then it actually a lot of time pushes it further.
Oh, really?
Into, yeah.
Oh.
Like it'll push it into the bearing holes and the borings right in there. And then I'm going to change these bolts to the longer bolts and then just...
Oh, so you're running little sealed bearings in there, and that's okay, so that would be not good in there.
Yeah, so I'm running...
Right. Yep.
They're a 2 by... Well, they're a 2.5 by 3 by 6. I don't know. It's pretty okay. I mean, it's the smallest bearings that I can find that
sealed. Yeah, you could do thrust like knife pivots used.
Right, but then that's a 3-piece bearing, and
They're two. The ones I have, they're just you know.
Oh, you aren't running race and race and
It's
then
just-
balls?
The race is the steel of the knife. Okay.
Oh, I see.
And then the scales themselves, the stainless liner, I should say.
Right.
So there is no hardened race. Well, there is against the knife, excuse me, not against the scales, but
Right. So you're using
you put the
one outside.
yes, right. And so they just run around but I don't know the longevity, and probably not as effective or
Well, I mean, you look at the amount of cycles that my hand does compared to a knife.
sure enough.
You know, I mean, you just don't.
Yeah.
You know, I'll do 100,000 cycles, in a month.
Right.
You know, you'll do 100,000 cycles on a knife, maybe never.
Yeah. Right. Good point.
You know, so pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess you can't even get to a lot of those with electric.
No, it's like, how would you?
Yeah. You wouldn't.
Yeah. So is your friend duly impressed with the shop?
My friend, which one? What's
The
that?
one you brought last time?
Oh, with my shop?
With my shop.
Oh yeah. I don't know if he's not a mechanical mind as much. He's more of a business minded guy. He's a smart guy, but he owns a water delivery service, a bunch of trucks and all that stuff, and so he's
That's cool.
yeah. Actually, just called me today because he needs some. One of my other friend's son's going to come over and do a bunch of welding on a 4,000-gallon water tank.
Oh, that's cool.
Welding and shaping and whatever else. I'm not even sure. I haven't seen it, but
Yeah.
so he needs to borrow some plasma and torch and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Actually, guys, I'm going to call it for a little bit. I'll be back on it in a little bit. All right. See ya. Boop.
Hope I'm not interrupting. I don't
No.
know. How's that go for them? They're just kind of.